Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome everyone to our Sunday reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. And we'd like to begin by offering our humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namaum Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Putale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunyavadi Vasacha Deshatarine. And to each other. Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnanebhyo Namo Namaha. So please open up your Krishna book, chapter 87. We are still reading the prayers of the Veda personified. So if you have the same copy as this book, can I see your copy? Can you tell me the page number? We are on the 833, or otherwise it begins with, there are many arguments about the existence of this material world. There are many arguments. There are many arguments about the existence of this material world. So there are many arguments about the existence of this material world, but the Vaishnava philosophical conclusion is the best. The example of the earthen pot is very suitable. The form of the earthen pot may be temporary, but it has a specific purpose. The purpose of the earthen pot is to carry water from one place to another. Similarly, this material body, although temporary, has a special use. The living entity is given a chance from the beginning of the creation to evolve different kinds of material bodies according to the reserved desires he has accumulated from time immemorial. The human form of body is a special chance in which the developed form of consciousness can be utilized.
Sometimes the Mayavadi philosophers push forward the argument that if this material world is truth, then why are householders advised to give up their connection with this material world and take sannyas? But the Vaishnava philosophers' view of sannyas is not that. Because the world is false, one must therefore give up material activities. The purpose of Vaishnava sannyas is to utilize things as they are, intending to be utilized. Srila Rupa Goswami has given transcendentalists two formulas for dealing with this material world. When a Vaishnava renounces the materialistic way of life and takes a sannyas, it is not on the conception of the falsity of the material world, but to devote himself fully to engaging everything in the service of the Lord. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore gives this formula: one should be unattached to the material world because material attachment is meaningless. The entire material world, the entire cosmic manifestation belongs to God, Krishna. Therefore, everything should be utilized for Krishna, and the devotees should remain unattached to material things. This is the purpose of Vaishnava sannyas. A materialistic stick to the world for sense gratification, but a Vaishnava sannyas, although not accepting anything for his personal sense gratification, knows the art of utilizing everything for the service of the Lord. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore criticized the Mayavadi sannyas with his second formula. Because the Mayavadi do not know that everything has a utilization for the service of the Lord, they take the world to be false and falsely think they are liberated from the contamination of the material world. Since everything is on expansion of the energy of the Supreme Lord, the expansions are as real as the Supreme Lord is. The cosmic manifestation. The cosmic manifestation. Grade 55.
You give me a book. Where is it? That the cosmos world is only the temporary manifestation does not mean that it is false or that the source of manifestation is false. Since the source of its manifestation is truth, the manifestation is also truth, but one must know how to utilize it. The example of the earthen pot may be critiqued again. The earthen pot produced from the whole earth is temporary, but when used for the proper purpose, the earthen pot is not false. The Vaishnava philosophy know how to utilize the temporary construction of this material world, just as the snake man knows how to utilize the temporary construction of the earthen pot. When the earthen pot is used for a wrong purpose, that is false. Similarly, the human body of the material world, when used for sense gratification, is false. But if the human body and the material creation are used for the service of the Supreme Lord, their activities are never false. It is therefore confirmed in Bhagavad-Gita that even slightly using the body and the material world for the service of the Lord can deliver a person from the gravest danger when properly utilized. Either the superior nor the inferior energy emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead are false.
As far as fruitive activities are concerned, they are mainly based on the platform of sense gratification. Therefore, an advanced Krishna conscious person does not take to them. The result of fruitive activities can elevate one to the higher planetary system. But as it is said in the Bhagavad-Gita, foolish persons, after exhausting the results of their pious activities in the heavenly kingdom, come back again to this lower planetary system and then again try to go to the higher planetary system. Their only profit is to take the trouble of going and coming back. Just at present, many material scientists are spoiling their time by trying to go to the moon planet and again coming back. Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are described by the Vedas personified as Andha Parambara, or blind followers of the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Although such ceremonies are certainly mentioned in the Vedas, they are not meant for the intelligent class of men. Men who are too much attached to material enjoyment are captivated by the prospect of being elevated to the higher planetary system, and so they take to such ritualistic activities. But persons who are intelligent, who have taken shelter of a bona fide spiritual master to see things as they are, do not take to fruitive activities, but engage themselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord.
Persons who are not devotees take to the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies for materialistic reason, and then they are bewildered. A vivid example may be given. An intelligent person possessing $1 million
$1 million in a currency note does not hold the money without using it, even though he knows perfectly well that the currency note in themselves are nothing but paper. When one has $1 million in currency notes, he is actually holding only huge bunch of paper. But if he utilizes for a purpose, then he benefits. Similarly, although this material world may be false, just like the paper, it has its purpose, because beneficial utilization. Because the currency notes, although proper, are issued by the government, they have full value. Similarly, this material world may be false or temporary, but because it is an emanation from the Supreme Lord, it has the full value. The Vaishnava philosophers acknowledge the full value of the material world and know how to utilize it properly, whereas the Mayavadi philosophers fail to do so, just as those who mistake a currency note for an ordinary paper discard it and cannot utilize the money. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore declares that if one rejects this material world as a false, but considering the importance of this material world as a means to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such a renunciation has very little value. A person who knows the intrinsic value of this material world for the service of Lord, who is not attached to the material world and who renounces the material world by not accepting it for sense gratification, is situated in a real renunciation. This material world is an expansion of the material energy of the Lord. Therefore, it is real, it is not false, as sometimes concluded from the example of the snake and a rope.
The personified Vedas continued. The cosmic manifestation, because of the flickering nature of its impermanent existence, appears to less intelligent men to be false. The Mayavadi philosophers take advantage of the flickering nature of this cosmic manifestation to try to prove their thesis that this world is false. According to the Vedic version, before the creation, this world had no existence, and after dissolution, the world will no longer be manifested. Voidists also take advantage of this Vedic version and conclude that the cause of this material world is void. But the Vedic injunctions do not say that it is void. The Vedic injunctions defined the source of creation and dissolution as Yatova Imani Bhutani Jayante, he from whom this cosmic manifestation has emanated and in whom, after annihilation, everything will merge. The same is explained in the Vedanta Sutra in the first verse of the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam by the word Jamati Asya Yataha, he from whom all things emanate. All these Vedic injunctions indicate that the cosmic manifestation is due to the Supreme Absolute Personality of Godhead, and that when it is dissolved, it merges into Him. The same principle is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita. The cosmic manifestation comes into existence and again dissolves, and after dissolution, it merges into the existence of the Supreme Lord. This statement definitely confirms that the particular energy known as Bahir Angamaya, or the external energy, although of flickering nature, is the energy of the Supreme Lord, and as such, it cannot be false. It simply appears false. The Mayavadi philosophers conclude that because the material nature has no existence in the beginning and in its non-existence after dissolution, it is false.
But by the example of the earthen part and disease, the Vedic version is presented. Although the existence of the particular byproducts of the absolute truth is temporary, the energy of the Supreme Lord is permanent. The earthen pot or water jug may be broken or transformed into another shape, such as that of a dish or bowl, but the ingredient or the material basis, namely the earth, continues to be the same. The basic principle of the cosmic manifestation is always the same. Brahman, or the absolute truth. Therefore, the Mayavadi philosopher's theory that is false is certainly only a mental concoction. That the cosmic manifestation is flickering and temporary does not mean that it is false. The definition of falsity is that which never had any existence but which exists only in name. For instance, the eggs of a horse or the horn of a rabbit or the flower in the sky are phenomena which exist only in the name. There are no horse eggs, there is no rabbit horn, and there are no flowers growing in the sky. There are many things which exist in name of imagination but actually have no factual manifestation. Such things may be called false, but the Vaishnava cannot take this material world to be false simply because of its temporary nature. It is manifesting and again dissolving.
The personified Vedas continued by saying that the Supersoul and the individual soul, or Paramatma and Jivatma, can't be equal in any circumstances, although both of them sit within the same body, like two birds sitting in the same tree. As declared in the Vedas, these two birds, although sitting as friends, are not equal. One is simply a witness. This bird is the Paramatma or Supersoul, and the other bird is eating the fruits of the tree. That is the Jivatma. When there is cosmic manifestation, the Jivatma or the individual soul appears in the creation in different forms, according to his previous fruitive activities. And due to his long forgetfulness of real existence, he identifies himself within a particular form awarded to him by the laws of material nature. After assuming a material form, he is subjected to the three material modes of nature and acts accordingly to continue his existence in the material world. While he is enwrapped in such ignorance, his natural opulences become almost extinct. The opulences of the Supersoul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are not diminished. Although he appears within this material world, he maintains all opulences and perfections in full while keeping himself apart from all the tribulations of this material world. The conditioned soul becomes enwrapped in the material world, whereas the Supersoul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead leaves it without being affected, just as a snake sheds his skin. The distinction between the Supersoul and the conditioned individual soul is that the Supersoul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead maintains his natural opulences, known as Shat Aishwarya, Ashta Siddhi, and Ashta Guna.
Because of their poor fund of knowledge, the Mayavadi philosopher forget the fact that Krishna is always full with 6 opulences, 8 transcendental qualities and 8 kinds of perfection. The 6 opulences are wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge and renunciation. No one is greater than or equal to Krishna in these 6 opulences. The first of Krishna's 8 transcendental qualities is that he is always untouched by the continuation of the material exhale. This is mentioned in the Ipucha Apna Vidham. Just as the sun is never polluted by the continuation, the Supreme Lord is never polluted by any sinful activities. Although Krishna's action may sometimes seem impious, he is never polluted by such action. The second transcendental quality in that Krishna never dies. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the 4th chapter, he confirms Arjuna that both he and Arjuna had many appearances in this material world, but that he alone remember all such activities, past, present and future. This means that he never dies. Forgetfulness is due to death. As we die, we change our bodies and forget. Krishna, however, is never forgetful. He can remember everything that has happened in past. Otherwise, how could he remember that he first taught the yoga system of the Bhagavad-Gita to the sun god, Vaishnavan, Vishwasan? Therefore, he never dies, nor does he ever become an old man. Although Krishna was a great grandfather when he appeared on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he did not appear like an old man. Krishna cannot be polluted by any sinful activities. Krishna never dies. Krishna never becomes old. Krishna is never subjected to the limitation. Krishna is never hungry and he is never thirsty. Whatever he desires is perfectly lawful, and whatever he decides cannot be changed by anyone. There are 8 transcendental qualities of Krishna. Besides that, Krishna is known as Yogeshwar. He has all opulences of facility of mystic power, such as Anima Siddhi, the power to become smaller than the smallest. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that Krishna has entered even within the atom. Adra Satya Parama Satya Satyam. Similarly, Krishna and Garbhodakshai Vishnu is within the genetic universe, and he is lying as a causeless ocean as the Mahavishnu in the body of a genetic that when he exhales millions and trillions of universe emanating from his body. This is called Mahima Siddhi. Krishna also has the perfection of Lagima. He can become the lightest. It is stated in Bhagavad-Gita that it is because Krishna entered within the universe and within the atom that all planets are floating in the air. That is the explanation of the weightlessness. Krishna also has the perfection of Pati. He can get whatever he likes. Similarly, he has factual of the Isata, controlling power. He is called Supreme Controller, Parmeshwar. In the addition, Krishna can bring anyone under his influence. This is called Vasita.
In this way, Krishna is endowed with all opulences, transcendental qualities and mystic powers. No ordinary living being can compare to him. Therefore, the Mayavadi's theory that the super soul and the individual soul are equal is only a misconception. The conclusion is, therefore, that Krishna is worshipable and that all other living entities are simply his servants. This understanding is called self-realization. Any other realization of one's self beyond this relationship of eternal servitorship to Krishna is impelled by Maya. It is said that the lost snare of Maya is her direction to the living entity to try to become equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosophers claims to be equal to God, but he cannot reply to the question of why he has fallen into the material entanglement. If he is the supreme God, then how is it that he has overtaken by impious activities and thereby subjected to the tribulations of the law of karma? When the Mayavadis are asked about this, they cannot properly answer. The speculation that one is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is another symptom of sinful life. One cannot take to Krishna consciousness unless one is completely freed from all sinful activities. The very fact that the Mayavadi claims to be one with the Supreme Lord means that he is not yet freed from the reactions of sinful activities. Srimad Bhagavatam says that such persons are Abhisuddha Buddhaya, which means that because they falsely think themselves liberated and at the same time think themselves equal with the absolute truth, the intelligence is not purified. The personified Vedas said that if the yogis and the jnanis do not free themselves from sinful desires, then their particular process of self-realization will never be successful.
And dear Lord, the personified Vedas continued, if saintly persons do not take care to eradicate completely the roots of sinful desires, they cannot experience the super soul, although he is sitting side by side. He is sitting side by side with the individual soul. Samadhi or meditation means that one has to find the super soul within himself. One who is not free from sinful reaction cannot see the super soul. If a person has jeweled locket in his necklace, but forgets the jewel, it is almost as though he does not possess it. Similarly, if an individual soul meditates but does not actually perceive the presence of the super soul within himself, his meditation is useless. Person who have taken to the path of self-realization must therefore be very careful to avoid contamination by the influence of Maya. Srila Rupa Goswami says that a devotee should be completely free from all sorts of material desires. A devotee should not be affected by the results of karma and jnana. One has to simply understand Krishna and carry out his desire.
That is the pure devotional stage. The personified Vedas continued. Mystic yogis who still have contaminated desires for sense gratification are never successful in their attempt, nor can they realize the super soul within the individual self. As such, the so-called yogis and jnanis who are simply wasting their time in different types of sense gratification, either by mental speculation or by exhibition of limited mystic powers, will never be liberated from conditioned life and will continue to go through repeated births and deaths. For such persons, both this life and the next life are sources of tribulation. Such sinful persons are already suffering tribulation in this life. Because they are not perfect in self-realization, they will be plagued with further tribulation in the next life. Despite all endeavors to attain perfection, such yogis, contaminated by desires for sense gratification, will continue to suffer in this life and the next.
Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur remarks in this connection that if sannyasi, persons in the renounced order of life who have left their homes for self-realization, do not engage themselves in the devotional service of the Lord but become attracted by philanthropic work, such as opening educational institutions, hospitals, or even monasteries, churches, or temples of demigods, they find only trouble for such engagements, not only in this life but in the next. Sannyas who do not take advantage of this life to realize Krishna simply waste their time and energy in activities outside the jurisdiction of the renounced order. A devotee's attempt to engage his energy in such activities as constructing a Vishnu temple, however, is never wasted. Such engagements are called Krishnarthe Akhila Chesta, variegated activities performed to please Krishna. A philanthropic opening a school, building, and a devotee construction a temple are not on the same level. Although a philanthropic opening an educational institution may be wise activity, it comes under the laws of karma, whereas constructing a temple for Vishnu is devotional service.
Devotional service is never within the jurisdiction of the laws of karma. As stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, Sagunan Samadhi Etan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Devotees of the personality of Godhead transcend all the reactions of the three modes of material nature and are situated on the transcendental platform of Brahman realization. The devotees are liberated in both this life and the next. Any work done in this material world for yajna, Vishnu or Krishna is considered to be liberated work, but without connection with Achyuta, the infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no possibility of stopping the resultant actions of the laws of karma. The life of Krishna consciousness is the life of liberation. The conclusion is that a devotee, by the grace of the Lord, is liberated in both this life and the next, whereas the karmis, jnanis, and yogis are never liberated, either in this life or in the next.
The personified Veda continued, Dear Lord, anyone who by your grace has understood the glories of your lotus feet is glories of the material happiness and distress. The material packs are inevitable as long as we exist within the material world. But a devotee does not devote his attention to such action and reaction, which are the result of pious and impious activities. Nor is a devotee very much disturbed or pleased by the praise or contemnation from the people in general. A devotee is sometimes greatly praised because of his transcendental activities, and sometimes he is criticized, even though there is no reason for adverse criticism. The pure devotee, however, is always glorious or to praise or the condemnation by the ordinary people. Actually, the devotee's activities are on the transcendental plane. He is not interested in the praise or the condemnation of the people engaged in the material activities. If devotee can thus maintain his transcendental position, his liberation in this life and the next is guaranteed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
A devotee's transcendental position within this material world is maintained in the association of pure devotees simply by hearing the glorious activities enacted by the Lord in different ages and in different incarnations. The Krishna conscious movement is based on this principle. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakur has sung, "My dear Lord, let me be engaged in your transcendental loving service, as indicated by the previous acharyas, and let me live in the association of pure devotees. That is my desire, life after life." In other words, a devotee does not much care whether or not he is liberated. He is eager only for devotional service. Devotional service means that one does not do anything independently of the sanction of the acharyas. The actions of the Krishna conscious movement are directed by the previous acharyas headed by Srila Rupa Goswami. In the association of devotees following these principles, a devotee is able to perfectly maintain his transcendental position.
In the Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord says that a devotee who knows him perfectly is very dear to him. For kind of pious man, like a devotional service, if a pious man is in distress, he approaches the Lord for mitigation of his distress. If the pious man is in need of material help, he prays to the Lord for such help. If a pious man is actually inquisitive about the science of God, he approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Similarly, a pious man who is simply eager to know the science of the Krishna also approaches the Supreme Lord. One of these four classes of men, the last is praised by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad-Gita. A person who tries to understand Krishna with full knowledge and devotion by following the footsteps of previous acharya, conversant with the scientific knowledge of Supreme Lord, is praiseworthy.
Such a devotee can understand that all conditions of life, favorable and unfavorable, are created by the supreme will of the Lord. And when he has fully surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he does not care whether his condition of life is favorable or unfavorable. A devotee takes even an unfavorable condition to be the special favor of the personality of Godhead. Actually, there are no unfavorable conditions for a devotee. Knowing that everything is coming by the will of the Lord, he sees every condition as favorable, and in any condition of life, he is simply enthusiastic to discharge his devotional service. This devotional attitude is explained in the Bhagavad-Gita. A devotee is never distressed in reverse conditions of life, nor is he overjoyed in favorable conditions. In the higher stages of devotional service, a devotee is not even concerned with the least of do's and do nots. Such a position can be maintained only by following in the footsteps of the acharyas. Because a pure devotee follows in the footsteps of the acharyas, any action he performs to discharge devotional service should be understood to be on the transcendental platform. Lord Krishna therefore instructs us that an acharya is above criticism. A neophyte devotee should not consider himself to be on the same plane as the acharya. It should be accepted that the acharyas are on the same platform as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, neither Krishna nor his representative acharya should be subjected to any adverse criticism by the neophyte devotees.
The personified Vedas thus worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in different ways. Offering worship to the Supreme Lord by praying means remembering His transcendental qualities, pastimes and activities. But the Lord's pastimes and qualities are unlimited. It is not possible for us to remember all the qualities of the Lord. Therefore, the personified Vedas worship to the best of their ability, and at the end they spoke as follows: Dear Lord, although Lord Brahma, the predominating deity of the highest planet, Brahmaloka, and King Indra, the predominating demigod of the heavenly planets, as well as the predominating deities of such planets as the sun and the moon, are all very confidential directors of this material world. They have very little knowledge about you. Then what can ordinary human beings and mental speculators know of you? It is not possible for anyone to enumerate the unlimited transcendental qualities of your Lordship. No one, not even the mental speculators and the demigods in higher planetary systems, is actually able to estimate the length and breadth of your form and characteristic. We think that even your Lordship does not have complete knowledge of your transcendental qualities. The reason is that you are unlimited, although it is not befitting to say that you do not know yourself. It is practical to understand that because you have unlimited qualities and energies, and because your knowledge is also unlimited, there is unlimited competition between your knowledge and your expansion of energy.
The idea is that because God and His knowledge are both unlimited, as soon as the God is cognizant of some of His energies, He perceives that He has still more energies. In that way, both His energies and His knowledge increase. Because both of them are unlimited, there is no end to the energies and to the end of the knowledge with which to understand the energies. God is undoubtedly omniscient, but the personified Vedas say that even God Himself doesn't know the full extent of His energies. This doesn't mean that God is not omniscient. When an actual fact is unknown to a certain person, this is called ignorance or lack of knowledge. This is not applicable to God. However, because He knows Himself perfectly, but still, as His energies and activities increase, He also increases His knowledge to understand them. Both are increasing unlimitedly, and there is no end to it. In that sense, it can be said that even God Himself doesn't know the limit of His energies and qualities.
How God is unlimited in His expansion of energy and activities can be roughly calculated by any sane and sober living entity. It is said in the Vedic literature that innumerable universe issues forth when Mahavishnu exhales in his yoga nidra, and that innumerable universe enter his body when he inhales. He have to imagine, but this universe, which according to our limited knowledge are expanded unlimitedly, are so great that the gross and subtle ingredients, the five elements of the cosmos manifestation, namely earth, water, fire, air, and the sky, along with the total material energy and the false ego, are not only within the universe but cover the universe in 7 layers, each layer 10 times bigger than the previous one. In this way, each and every universe is very surely packed, and there are numberless universes all this universe floating within the innumerable purples of the transcendental body of the Mahavishnu, it is stated that just as the atoms and the particles of the dust are floating within the air along with the birds and their numbers cannot be calculated, so innumerable universes are floating within the probes of the transcendental body of the Lord. For this reason, the Vedas says that God is beyond the grasp of our knowledge. Avatan Mansa Grossa Ra. To understand the length and the breadth of the God is beyond the duration of our material speculation. Therefore, a person who is actually learned and snake does not claim to be God, but tries to understand God, making distinction between spirit and matter. By such careful discrimination, one can clearly understand that the Supreme Soul is transcendental to both the superior and inferior energy, although he has direct connection with both. In Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord Krishna explains that although everything is resting on his energy, he is different or the separate from the energies.
Nature and the living entities are sometimes designated as Prakriti and Purusha, respectively. The whole cosmic manifestation is an amalgamation of Prakriti and Purusha. Nature is the ingredient cause, and the living entities are the effective cause. These two causes combine together, and the effect is this cosmic manifestation. One is fortunate enough to come to the right conclusion about this cosmic manifestation and everything going on within it. He knows it to be caused directly and indirectly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. It is concluded in the Brahma Samhita, therefore, Isvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. After much deliberation and consideration, one has to attain the perfection of knowledge. One comes to the conclusion that Krishna or God is the original cause of all causes. Instead of speculating about the measurement of God, whether He is so long or so wide, or falsely philosophizing, one should come to the conclusion of the Brahma Samhita. Krishna or God is Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. That is the perfection of knowledge.
Thus, the Veda Stuti or the prayers offered by the personified Vedas to Garbhodaksha Vishnu were the first narrated in disciplic succession by Sunanda to his brothers, all of whom were born of Brahma at the beginning of the universe. The four Kumars were the firstborn sons of Brahma. Therefore, they are known as Purva Jata. It is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita that Parampara system or the disciplic succession begins with Krishna himself. Similarly, here in the prayers of the personified Veda, it is to be understood that the Parampara system begins with the personality of Godhead, Narayana Rishi. We should remember that this Veda Shruti is narrated by Kumara Sananda, and the narration is repeated by Narayan Rishi. In the Badrikashram,
Narayan Rishi is the incarnation of Krishna for showing us the path of self-realization by undergoing severe austerities. In this age, Lord Chaitanya demonstrated the path of pure devotional service by putting himself in the role of a pure devotee. Similarly, in the past, Lord Narayan Rishi was an incarnation of Krishna who performed severe austerities in the Himalayan ranges. Sri Narada Muni was hearing from him. So in the statement given by Narayan Rishi to Narada Muni, as narrated by Kumara Sanandana in the form of the Veda Stuti, it is understood that God is the one supreme and that all others are his servants.
In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated, Ekla Ishvara Krishna. Krishna is the only supreme God, Arsa Bhritya. All others are his servants. Yare yache nachaye, se taiche kare nritya. The Supreme Lord, as he desires, is engaging all the living entities in different activities, and thus they exhibit their different talents and tendencies. This Ved Stuti is thus the original instruction regarding the relationship existing between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The highest platform of realization for the living entity is the attainment of devotional service, devotional life. One cannot be engaged in devotional life or Krishna consciousness unless one is fully free from material contaminations. Narayan Rishi informed Narada Muni that the essence of all the Vedas and Vedic scriptures, namely the four Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas and the Vedanta Sutra, is to render transcendental loving service to the Lord. In this connection, Narayan Rishi has used one particular word, rasa. In devotional service, that ras is the medium or the basic principle for the exchange of dealings between the Lord and the living entity. Ras is also described in the Vedas, Rasovaya Sa. The Supreme Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. All the Vedic scriptures, including the Puranas, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the Vedanta Sutra, teach the living entities how to attain the stage of rasa. The Bhagavatam also says that statement in the Mahapuran Srimad Bhagavatam constitute the essence, ras, of all Vedic literature. Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam. The Bhagavatam is the essence of the ripened fruit of the tree of the Vedic literature.
We understand that with the breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is issued for the fourth Vedas, namely the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda, and the Atharva Veda, and also the histories like the Mahabharata and all the Puranas, which are considered to be the history of the world. The Vedic histories like the Puranas and Mahabharata are called the fifth Veda. The 28th verse of the Veda Stuti are to be considered the essence of all Vedic knowledge. The four Kumars and all other authorized sages know perfectly that devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the essence of all Vedic literature, and they preach this on different planets. Traveling in outer space, it is stated herein that such sages, including Narad Muni, hardly ever travel on land. They perpetually travel in space. Sages like Narad and the Kumars travel although the universe to educate the conditioned soul that their business in the world is not that of sense gratification, but of reinstating themselves in their original position of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated in several places that the living entities are like sparks of the fire, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is like the fire itself. If the sparks somehow or other fall out the fire, they lose their natural illumination. Thus, it is certain that the living entities come into this material world exactly as sparks from a great fire. The living entity wants to imitate Krishna and tries to lord it over material nature in order to enjoy sense gratification. Thus, he forgets his original position and his illuminating power. His spiritual identity is extinct. However, if living entity takes to Krishna consciousness, he is restated in his original position. To preach this process of devotional service, sages and saints like Narad and Kumars travel all over the universe, educating people and encouraging their disciples. Their aim is that all the conditioned souls may be educated to revive their original consciousness or Krishna consciousness and thus gain relief from miserable condition of material life.
Sri Narada Muni is a Naistika Brahmachari. There are 4 types of brahmacharis. The first is called Savitra, which refers to a brahmachari who, after initiation and the sacred thread ceremony, must observe at least 3 days of celibacy. The next is called Prajapatya, which refers to a brahmachari who strictly observes celibacy for at least 1 year after initiation. The next is called Brahma Brahmachari, which refers to a brahmachari which observes celibacy from the time of initiation up to the time of the completion of his study of the Vedic literature. The next stage is called the Naistika, which refers to a brahmachari who is celibate throughout the whole life. Out of this, the first are Upakurvana, which means that the brahmacharis can marry later after the brahmachari period is over. The Naistika brahmachari, however, is completely reluctant to have any sex life. Therefore, the Kumaras and the Narada are known as Naistika brahmacharis. Such brahmacharis are called Veera Vrata because their vow of celibacy is as heroic as the vows of the Kshatriya. The brahmachari system of life is especially advantageous in that it increases the power of memory and determination. It is specifically mentioned in this connection that because Narada was a Naistika brahmachari, he could remember whatever he heard from his spiritual master and would never forget it. One who can remember everything perpetually is called a Shruti Dhara. A Shruti Dhara brahmachari can repeat verbatim all that he has heard, without notes and without reference to books. The great sage Narada has this qualification, and therefore, having taken instruction from the Narayan Rishi, he is engaged in propagating the philosophy of devotional service all over the world. Because such great sages can remember everything, they are thoughtful, self-realized, and completely fixed in the service of the Lord.
Thus the great sages Narada, after hearing from his spiritual master Narayan Rishi, became completely realized. He became exalted in the truth, and because of the happy that he offered praise to the Narayan Rishi. Narad Muni addressed Narayan Rishi as an incarnation of Krishna and specially addressed him as the supreme well-wisher of the conditioned soul. It is stated in Bhagavad-Gita that Lord Krishna descended in every millennium just to give protection to his devotees and to annihilate the non-devotees. Narayana being an incarnation of Krishna is also addressed as the well-wisher of the conditioned soul. As stated in Bhagavad-Gita, everyone should know that there is no well-wisher like Krishna. Everyone should understand that Lord Krishna is the supreme well-wisher of everyone and should take shelter of him. In this way, one can become completely confident and satisfied, knowing that he has someone who is able to give him all protection. Krishna himself, his incarnation, and his plenary expansion are all supreme well-wisher of the conditioned soul. But Krishna is the well-wisher even of the demons, for he gave salvation to all the demons who came to kill him in Vrindavan. Therefore, Krishna welfare activities are absolute, for whether he annihilates a demon or gives protection to a devotee, the result of his activities is one and the same. It is said that the demon's Putana was elevated to the same position as that of Krishna's mother. When Krishna killed a demon, the demon is supremely benefited, as such as a pure devotee is benefited by always being protected by the Lord.
Narada Muni, after offering respects to Narada Rishi, went to the ashrama of Vyasadeva, his disciple. Being properly received by Vyasadeva in his ashrama and seated very comfortably, Narada Muni narrated the entire story of what he had heard from Narayan Rishi. In this way, Sukadeva Goswami informed Maharaja Parikshit of the answers to his questions regarding the essence of Vedic knowledge and what is considered to be the ultimate goal in the Vedas. The supreme goal of life is to achieve the transcendental blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become engaged in the loving service of the Lord. One should follow in the footsteps of Sukadeva Goswami and of the other Vaishnavas in the disciplic succession and should pay respectful obeisances unto Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. The four sects of Vaishnava disciplic succession, namely the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, the Ramanuja Sampradaya, the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, and the Nimbarga Sampradaya, in pursuance of all Vedic conclusions, agree that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The Vedic literature is divided into two parts, the Shrutis and Smritis. The Shrutis are the four Vedas, Rug, Sam, Atharva and Yajur. And the Upanishads are the Smritis, are Puranas and the Itihasas, like Mahabharata, which include the Bhagavad-Gita. The conclusion of all this is one should know Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Parampara or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose superintendence the material nature works for creation, maintenance and annihilation. The Supreme Lord incarnates into three, Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva. After manifesting the material cosmos, all these take charge of the three modes of material nature. But ultimate direction is in the hand of Lord Vishnu. The complete activities of material nature under the three modes are conducted under the direction of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita and in the Vedas.
The ascetic Sankhyatic philosophers will, of course, offer their argument that the material cosmic manifestation is due to Prakriti and Purusha, material nature and the living entity, or the material cause and the effect cause. But Krishna is the cause of all causes. He is the cause of both material and the effective causes. Prakriti and Purusha are not the ultimate cause. Superficially, it appears that a child is born due to the combination of the father and mother, but the ultimate cause of both the father and the mother is Krishna. He is therefore the original cause, or the cause of all causes, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Both the Supreme Lord and the living entities enter into the material nature. The Supreme Lord Krishna, by one of his plenary expansions, manifests as Karanodakashai, Mahavishnu, the gigantic Vishnu form lying in the causal ocean. Then from that gigantic form of Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashai Vishnu expands and enters into every universe. From him, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva expand. Vishnu as Kshirodakashai enters into the hearts of all living entities, as well as into all material elements, including the atom. The Brahma Samhita says, Anantarastha Paramanu Chayatarastham. The Lord is within this universe and also within every atom.
The living entity has a small material body taken in various species and forms. And similarly, the whole universe is but the material body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This body is described in the Shastras as Virat Rupa. As the individual living entities maintains his particular body, the Supreme Personality of Godhead maintains the whole cosmic creation, entering within it. As soon as the individual living entity leaves the material body, the body is immediately annihilated. And similarly, as soon as Lord Vishnu leaves the cosmic manifestation, everything is annihilated. Therefore, only when the individual living entity surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is his liberation from material existence possible. This is confirmed in Bhagavad-Gita, Mamevye prapadante mayametam tarantite. Surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else is therefore the cause of liberation. How the living entity becomes liberated from the modes of material nature after surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is illustrated by the example a sleeping man within a room. When a man is sleeping, everyone sees that he is present within the room, but actually the man himself is not within that body, for while sleeping a man forgets his bodily existence, although others may see that his body is present. Similarly, a liberated person engaged in devotional service to the Lord may be seen by others to his consciousness is fixed in Krishna. He does not live within this world. His engagements are different exactly as the sleeping man's engagements
are different from his bodily engagements. It is confirmed in Bhagavad-Gita that a devotee engaged full time in the transcendental loving service of the Lord has already surpassed the influence of the three modes of material nature. He is already situated on the Brahman platform and is in the transcendental realm. Although he appears to be living within the body or within the material world.
In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami stated in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that the person whose only desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead may be situated in any condition in the material world, but is to be understood as Jivan Mukta. That is to say, he is to be considered liberated while living within the body or the material world. The conclusion, therefore, is that a person fully engaged in Krishna consciousness is a liberated person. Such a person actually has nothing to do with his material body or the material world. Those who are not in Krishna consciousness are called karmis and jnanis, and they hover unconscious are called on the worldly and mental platforms and thus are not liberated. This situation is called Kaivalya Nirasta Yoni, but a person situated on the transcendental platform is freed from the repetition of birth and death. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita, 4th chapter. Simply by knowing the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, one becomes free from the chains of the repetition of birth and death. And after quitting his present body, he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is the conclusion of all the Vedas. Thus, after understanding the prayers offered by the personified Vedas, one should surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the 87th chapter of Krishna, prayers by the personified Vedas.
So we will end an hour of Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada with deep gratitude. And we would like to thank Srila Prabhupada for allowing us to come here and read to him. Let us offer our humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhuttale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vivishesha Sunyavadi Pasyacha Desatarine. And to each other, Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyacha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.